Welcome back, everyone, and this is part 2 of my program standards. I'm looking already at a mistake that I need to correct, so let me correct that right now. And we're going to change this to Pascal case. So we're talking about user-defined data types, which is a structure. Now, I do not believe that you're required to use a structure in this class. However, when you see how I did the chain of time project, I did it using a structure of time that kept track of the hours, minutes, and seconds, and whether or not it was AM and PM in one variable. It made it very easy in there. The program itself is not required to be done in a class. Some people like to do it in a class. I just feel it's a lot easier to do it in a structure, and you'll see some of my code in a video that's posted. So let's go into creating a structure, and it's really very simple. You want to create the structure up in front of main in here, so the structure is available through any function. So let's go here, and we just type in the word struct. So let's just create a structure, and we'll call it person. And I'm going to use a string first name. And I like to do this so I know it's initialized to first name. And why I'm getting I know why I'm getting it, because I would need to do std string. So what I'm going to do is comment this out here, and notice that it should go away. But I can do this as well. And you can see how it works. But make your life easier, because some of my programs have about 20 of these up top. And I always have this commented out, but then I can always undo the comments to see if an error I'm getting goes away. So we're not going to want to mess around with this. So I'm going to using name string, and we'll do last name. And then we're going to do, let's just call it age. And age will probably be a integer. And we'll make that 0. So again, we can do the person. And that should take it out. If anything goes wrong, you'll see some errors. So I'm going to put this here, and notice that it's kind of looking for something that doesn't make sense. It's expecting a semicolon. So let's just get rid of this, because that's how it works. So if I were to do something simple without even declaring a initializing in here, I'm going to declare a person. And I like to, this is my personal way of doing it, I like to precede all structures with an S. That's just my personal way of doing it. So I'm just going to do structure person or structure one person. So now if I want to see if my default works, I'm going to do cout, and I will do the person, which is S, one person. And notice what happens when I hit the period. It immediately gives me all of my members in here, not in the order that they're declared, in alphabetical order. So let's just do first name, and we'll do an NL. And this is a simple way of finding things if they work. So if I did it right, it should say FN. We will find out. And it says FN and then hello world. So far, we're looking pretty good. So let me go back to enum. Let's just say that I want to have a lunch menu that is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I'm typing in enum, and I'll just call it menu. Now, normally, you're going to do menu all in capital letters. Why? Because they're constants in here. You cannot change an enum in here. And then, so let's go back and look at the example that I gave here. And so we have a num. Now, notice that I did time of day in here. Then you have a bracket and a closing bracket and a semicolon, no equal sign. How do you know whether to use an equal sign? How do you not know whether to use an equal sign? Put one in. If you get a red line, take it out. If you don't put it in and you get a red line, put one in. Because you're not going to be able to remember every single rule in here. It's just not possible. So we're going to do an I'm going to put the equal sign in here. And we'll do in capital letters, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which you see a lot of red lines, Thursday, and Friday. So we have a dilemma. Let's see what the message is. And this is undefined. So this really doesn't help us. So why don't we just do this here and see if that. So now, if I hold my mouse over it, this is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I want to start at 1, I'm going to just make that 1. And then this will be 2 and 3. That again. So now I can do like a lunch menu with an if statement. If today equals Monday, then blah, blah, blah. All right. So moving on. And classes. So a class, I'm not going to really do anything as far as coding. I'm just going to explain the classes because you'll be needing a class when we get to Project 2. And Project 2 is the banking class where you're making deposits in there and you're collecting interest. And so you're going to use a class on that. You'll have a video on that as well. So again, notice this is going to be Pascal case where every word is capitalized in here. Now, this is the way I do it. I like to do all the private members capitalized in here, and then the private functions capitalized. As far as the member ones that are public, I do camel case. That's kind of standard in here. And these are the prototypes and that you can use in here. So again, more on that. I don't really hold that too much in here. This is really, 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 really good standards in here is to be consistent. Whatever you do, you should do in everything in here. So again, here is the way the banking default is in here. So that should initialize everything in here as well. Now notice that the banking here is separate than it was in the class, or rather in the structure, because by default, the default constructor for a class has to be public. The default for a class is private. So we would need to make sure it goes into public. For a structure, the default is public, so you don't have to worry about it in here. And let's see. So this is kind of self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go over each one with inside of Visual Studio. Capitalize private members. However, if you like to do M private member, that's fine too. Either way, it really doesn't matter. I'm okay with either way, or actually, people usually do this. I'm not really fond of that, but again, it's a matter of style in here. So, and I have it actually right over here. Same for protected. Now, we're not going to get into derived classes. Sometimes some of the students do a derived class. It's really not necessary in this class to do. Again, I don't recommend it. I don't think it's really necessary. I just think it adds more work and more coding and more things that can go wrong in here. So we'll move on to that. No one-letter variables. You should never, ever, ever, ever use a variable like X. Now, sometimes in the project that we're going to do, the first project, a lot of people like to pass hour and H and seconds as S. And I take all points for that because H and S is not a descriptive variable. Just type the word hours or minutes and seconds. It's not that hard. And there. Let's go. I don't recommend using min because there actually is a function called min and it's easy to be distinguished in here. Let's see what we have in here. This does not apply to loop counters in a loop. That's okay if you want to use I for integer I equals. And let's see what we have in here. So I have it in here. So, and notice it does apply to parameters in functions. So I get it in here. So you should not use integer H, integer M. You should use hours, minutes, and seconds in there. So here's something that's really important. Each CN should have a separate prompt and no end else. So let me repeat that again. Each CN should have a separate prompt without an end else. So let's go, and we have our three numbers, I believe. So let's just go and do what I do not want you to do. And I'm going to do cout or cin num1 num2 and num3. And that will work, except for when the user runs the program, has no idea what to do. So let's just go and run it here. And it's going to be what? So let's forget that. And let's do the next best thing. Cout, enter three numbers. And notice that this is a prompt line. And notice that there is no end line. So let's run this again. So now it's enter three numbers and we do 20 and then we don't know what to do. So again, yeah, they'll say, well, it does say enter three numbers. I'll do 20, 30, 40. However, the problem with that is if you enter something wrong, it's hard to determine what you did wrong. So let's go and do something. We'll enter three numbers. Let's type in A. And look what happened in there. So you want to be very, very careful with that. So what you want to do here is enter, say, enter the first number. And we'll just do this here. And we'll just copy this here so I don't have any more typos, and we'll just do second. I'm trying to type, not doing well. And let's go and get the third one. And we're good here. Let's run it and see what happens. And we'll do 10, 20, and 30. So everything looks fine in here. So That's how I would like them to. Notice no end line. Notice the space after the prompt in here just to make so everything's not pushed up in here. If you do an end line, it'll still work, but it's not as user-friendly. So notice how it's not as user-friendly. This is much more user-friendly. And let's see what we have next. I have given you examples of how to do things. All right, system pause and system CLs are Windows functions, don't work on Mac in here. So if you want to do a system pause, you can do this over here. So let's go and do that real quick. Now, because we have string included, we can use cin to get. So let's just go see out, press enter to continue. Now, it does require the enter key. You can't press any key to continue. You're going to need to hit the enter key. And then I'm going to do cin.get. So let's try and see if that works. And it does not work. Why does that not work? Okay. That is a thing where when you learn see and ignore, for right now, I'm going to put it in without explaining it. But that's one of the disadvantages of having a cin. I will have a separate video on that, and I believe I already have one available that talks what you need to do. So what we have to do here is we have to do cin.ignore. And I'm just going to do 100 characters for now. And you'll see my video on it. And that explains the difference between cin and getLine and when to use others and how to mix them in here. So what's going to happen here, every time you hit a cin, in the keyboard buffer is the new line character. Because when we had cin get, the keyboard buffer still had that. This is going to pitch 100 characters or the new line character, whatever comes first. So let's try this again. Let's get rid of this endl because it's getting on my nerves. And we have 10, 20, and 30. And notice our press enter continue. So I will show you a way to clear the screen in here, regardless of whether you're on a Windows or a Mac. So you don't want to use system CLS, especially if you're on a Mac, and you don't want to use system clear because it may work on Windows. All right, this is probably the last thing I'm going to go over on this one. Do not, so I'm going to say this 5 times, that's once. Do not, that's 3. Do not, 4. Do not, 5. Use while true loops. You say why? And that's a great question. Because it leads to more trouble than it's worth in here. While it's valid code, the pros do not exceed the cons in here. You want to make your code readable. So while true doesn't really tell you anything. But while number is less than or equal to 5 is a lot more. It gives you the condition in here or do while in here. So, and then functions all should have a purpose of a function. I'm going to show you something real quick that I wrote. So let me save this here. And I'll show you, I will show you the way I comment just to show you that I'm not making you do something that you don't have to. Let's go and here's actually my video on how to clear the screen. It's actually, this is my program that I wrote in here. So you can see, and this may appear in a upcoming book, Now, you don't have to worry about what all this mumbo jumbo means. You can have this code. I will make it available for you in here. You totally have to understand it. But you can see, again, notice my comment. I don't normally include it, but it's convenient in here. And I do a lot of explaining in here. This is for students that really want a complete explanation of everything. So notice that I have if Win32, then use system CLS. Otherwise, it's a Mac, use system clear. This is the preferred method of doing it through the escape sequence. And I have a flush in here that flushes the buffer again, so you can see all these things in here. So all of my functions are completely commented with everything in here. So that is all I have for right now. This video is a little bit longer. We may have to do a part 3. But that's okay. Please, again, look at my videos. I know you got a million things to do. I know that they can be a little bit longer than I would like them to be. And I know that I'm not doing any bells and whistles and fancy music and things like that. It's just down to earth C++ for you. So that is it. Let me know if you have any questions. Please, if you like this video, like it. Please leave a comment one way or the other. That helps me make videos in the future.